This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to our daily roundup. We are diving into a busy news cycle today, covering everything from major federal health policy shifts to the surprising science behind our daily habits and entertainment.
Trump signs order to expedite psychedelic mental health treatments.
Walking more reduces death risk regardless of sitting time.
Common foods contain surprising amounts of hidden insect fragments.
Extra virgin olive oil may boost brain power via gut.
AI chatbots provide confident but often dangerous medical advice.
Medical experts warn of neurological risks from sexual choking.
Live music synchronizes brainwaves better than recorded tracks.
A terminal patient weaves her own casket with friends.
Starting with federal policy.
President Trump has taken a significant step toward reforming how the federal government handles psychedelic substances. On Saturday, he signed an executive order aimed at reversing the crisis of serious mental illness in America by boosting access to these drugs in clinical settings. The order directs the FDA to expedite the status of certain psychedelics as breakthrough drugs and allows them to be used under right-to-try legislation. This is particularly aimed at helping terminally ill patients and veterans who have struggled with traditional treatments. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary noted that priority review vouchers for specific serotonin agonists will be issued very soon, with decisions expected by late summer. It marks a massive shift in the war on drugs, moving toward a therapeutic framework for substances like psilocybin and MDMA that were once strictly prohibited.
What is really fascinating here is the political and social coalition behind this move. Trump mentioned that the push for this order came partly from influential figures like Joe Rogan and leaders of the Make America Healthy Again movement. It shows a top-down policy-making style where personal testimonials and high-profile advocacy are bypassing traditional, slow-moving bureaucracy. Beyond just the FDA, the order calls on the DEA and the Department of Justice to begin rescheduling reviews after successful Phase 3 trials. Trump has promised that this rescheduling will happen very quickly once the safety and efficacy are proven. The administration is also putting its money where its mouth is, providing $50 million in funding for states to develop their own psychedelic treatment programs. It is a bold attempt to address depression, PTSD, and opioid addiction through unconventional medical pathways.
Now for some exercise news.
If you spend most of your day sitting at a desk, there is some very encouraging news from the University of Sydney. A massive study involving over 72,000 people found that simply increasing your daily step count can significantly lower your risk of death and cardiovascular disease, even if you remain sedentary for long periods. The researchers used data from wearable devices to track participants and found that hitting between 9,000 and 10,000 steps a day provided the most substantial benefits. Specifically, it cut the risk of mortality by nearly 40% and reduced the risk of heart disease by over 20%. This suggests that while sitting for long hours is still not ideal, the negative effects can be largely offset by making a conscious effort to move more throughout the day.
It is important to note that the lead author, Dr. Matthew Amity, clarifies that this isn't a total get-out-of-jail-free card for being sedentary. However, the public health message is clear. Every bit of movement matters. The study is unique because it used objective data from wearables rather than relying on self-reported activity, which can often be inaccurate. By looking at the direct interaction between sedentary time and step counts, the team showed that the benefits of walking are consistent regardless of how much time you spend in a chair. For those of us who have unavoidable desk jobs, this provides a tangible goal. You don't necessarily need a high-intensity workout to see major health improvements. You just need to get those steps in. It is a simple, accessible way to support long-term longevity and heart health.
Next, a look at food.
You might want to put down your coffee for this one. A recent investigation into the hidden ingredients in our favorite foods has revealed some stomach-churning details about what is legally allowed in our diet. In the United States, the FDA has specific guidelines for how many insect fragments and other contaminants can be present in food before it is considered a violation. For example, peanut butter can contain up to 30 insect fragments per 100 grams, and chocolate can have 60. Even your morning orange juice might have a maggot in it. While these are considered minor and unavoidable contaminations in the agricultural supply chain, the sheer volume adds up. Estimates suggest that the average American unintentionally consumes about 450 grams of insects every single year through these processed and natural food products.
The issue goes beyond just insects, though. Experts like Chris Young from the Real Bread campaign are raising alarms about the cocktail of additives, fortificants, and modified ingredients in ultra-processed foods. While each individual additive is tested and declared safe, there is very little research on the long-term effects of consuming them in combination over decades. We are also seeing concerns about heavy metals from polluted soils and microbial slimes used as processing aids. While some new technologies like fermented fats could help feed the world more sustainably, the lack of transparent labeling makes it hard for consumers to know what they are actually eating. It is a reminder that the modern food system is incredibly complex, and what we see on the label is often just the beginning of the story regarding what is actually inside the package.
Moving to brain health.
There is a new reason to reach for the high-quality olive oil in your pantry. Researchers from Universitat Rovira I Virgili have found that extra virgin olive oil can actually boost brain power by reshaping the gut microbiome. In a 2-year study of over 600 adults, those who consumed extra virgin olive oil showed significantly better cognitive performance compared to those using refined olive oil. The key seems to be the diversity of gut bacteria. The high-quality oil promoted a more varied and healthy bacterial environment, which researchers linked directly to improved memory and mental clarity. This is the first human study to specifically track how olive oil facilitates this interaction between the gut and the brain, suggesting that the benefits of the Mediterranean diet are even more profound than we previously understood.
The study focused on adults between 55 and 75 who were at risk for cardiovascular disease, making the findings especially relevant for aging populations. What is striking is that refined olive oil did not produce the same results. This means the processing method matters immensely. The polyphenols and healthy fats preserved in the extra virgin variety are likely the drivers of these neurological benefits. By identifying specific microbes that flourished with olive oil consumption, scientists are getting closer to understanding the gut-brain axis. It suggests that simple dietary swaps, like choosing the right oil for your salad, could be a powerful tool in preventing cognitive decline as we age. It is a low-cost, high-impact intervention that supports both metabolic health and brain function simultaneously, proving once again that food is indeed medicine.
Now, about AI doctors.
Many people are turning to AI chatbots like ChatGPT for medical advice because it is often faster than waiting for a GP appointment. For some, like a woman named Abby from Manchester, it helps manage health anxiety by providing tailored answers rather than the generic scary results of a Google search. However, experts are warning that this can be incredibly dangerous. While AI can pass medical exams, it lacks the real-world diagnostic capability of a human doctor. Abby's experience highlights this perfectly. In one instance, the AI correctly advised her to see a pharmacist for a minor infection. But later, after a fall, the AI told her she had a punctured organ and needed immediate emergency care. After 3 hours in the ER, she realized she was fine and the AI had been confidently but completely wrong about her condition.
England's chief medical officer, Sir Chris Whitty, has expressed serious concern about this trend. He points out that we are at a tricky point where the technology is popular, but the answers are simply not good enough yet. Chatbots are designed to be helpful and conversational, which often leads them to hallucinate or provide medical advice with a level of certainty that isn't backed by clinical evidence. This can lead to unnecessary panic and a strain on emergency services. Or worse, it could cause someone to ignore a serious symptom if the AI downplays it. While AI might eventually become a useful tool for triage, the current consensus among medical professionals is that it cannot be trusted for definitive diagnoses. The risk of a confident but incorrect answer is just too high when lives are on the line.
Shifting to a sensitive topic.
Medical professionals are raising the alarm about the neurological risks associated with breath play or choking during intimacy. While often discussed in social contexts as choking, the clinical term is actually strangulation, and it involves applying external pressure to the neck. This practice can restrict the flow of blood and oxygen to the brain, leading to potential long-term damage. The neck contains vital structures like the carotid arteries and jugular veins. When these are compressed, it disrupts the central nervous system and can cause a condition known as hypoxia, where the brain is deprived of oxygen. Even if the pressure is brief, researchers are finding that brain cell damage can begin within hours. Some cells may even undergo a process called apoptosis, or delayed cell death, days after the initial event occurred during a sexual encounter.
The risks are not just about oxygen deprivation. They also involve physical pressure on nerve clusters called carotid bodies. This can cause sudden and dangerous drops in heart rate or blood pressure. Certain areas of the brain, like the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, are particularly sensitive to these disruptions. As this practice has moved from niche circles into more mainstream encounters over the last decade, doctors are seeing more cases of hidden physiological strain. Advanced brain imaging and histological studies are now being used to investigate whether consensual neck compression leads to lasting cognitive or neurological impairment. It is a critical area of study because many participants may not realize that even a few seconds of restricted blood flow can have cumulative effects on brain health and overall nervous system function.
Next, the power of music.
Have you ever wondered why a live concert feels so much more powerful than listening to the same song on your headphones? A new study in the journal Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience has found a biological reason for this. Researchers discovered that listening to live music causes brainwaves to synchronize much more strongly with the musical rhythm than recorded music does. This phenomenon, known as neural entrainment, is the brain's tendency to align its internal electrical rhythms with external patterns like a beat. The study, conducted in a real concert hall setting, showed that this enhanced synchronization directly predicts how much pleasure and engagement a person feels during the performance. It seems that the presence of a live performer creates a unique physiological connection that a digital recording simply cannot replicate.
The researchers, including Psyche Louis from Northeastern University, wanted to see if the live context itself changed the brain's response, independent of the actual sound quality. They recruited participants with musical training and monitored their brain activity during live and recorded sessions. They found that audiences not only synchronize with the music, but also with each other during live events. This collective physiological experience is part of why live music remains so popular, despite the availability of high-quality streaming. It's about the rhythmic entrainment and the pleasurable urge to move that is amplified in a live setting. This research provides a fascinating look at how our brains are wired for social and rhythmic connection, explaining why we are willing to pay a premium for the experience of being in the same room as the artist.
Finally, a moving story.
We end today with the story of Maddie Christine Hope Brokop, a woman in her 50s who received a terminal cancer diagnosis and decided to take a very personal approach to her final arrangements. She chose to weave her own casket, or more specifically, a burial tray, and she invited her closest friends to help her do it. They traveled to a workshop in Massachusetts run by Mary Lauren Fraser, a specialist in casket weaving. Over the course of 2 days, Brokop and her friends from different stages of her life worked together, placing branches of willow between pine ribs. It was a way to turn a somber reality into a communal act of love and craftsmanship. The process allowed them to confront death directly, while creating something beautiful and natural for her final resting place.
The workshop itself is a unique space, filled with books on both basketry and the philosophy of death. Fraser's caskets look like large wicker baskets, a familiar and comforting aesthetic compared to traditional wooden coffins. For Brokop's friends, like Cynthia Seegers, who flew in from the Netherlands, the experience was profound. They spent the weekend drinking peppermint tea and weaving, sharing stories and laughter despite the weight of the task. Brokop was the first to start the weaving, taking ownership of her journey. This act of death positivity highlights a growing movement where people seek more meaningful, hands-on ways to handle the end of life. It transformed a terrifying diagnosis into a shared memory of creation, ensuring that her final vessel was literally built by the hands of those who loved her most.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for these essential stories. We will be back tomorrow with another update on the news shaping our world.